Hello, it is us again, Wednesday, DebateSensei, 8 o'clock. I am Jared Kabika Miller, your professor of communications, debate coach. We have Matt Shapiro, Esquire.
Hello.
We got Tim Seeby, Visolutions, and Cal State, San Diego. Jesus. Man, like, what city is that? Yeah.
South.
Hey, yeah, today we are talking about asynchronous debate. Okay, and the reason for this is because I just saw a conference that recently happened. They were talking about asynchronous tournaments in general, and it seems like everyone, kind of comprehends how asynchronous individual event tournaments go, but I don't think people really quite understand how to manage an asynchronous debate tournament. So we want to focus just on asynchronous debate this time. We'll probably, talk about individual events as a way to contrast. But for right now, I wanted to talk about how to do the debate portion of that. And now I kind of feel like I got a unique perspective on this because I've been using asynchronous debate in my argumentation and debate classes, my college classes, for the last 5 years. And I've been, and now it just seems like a really good opportunity to put it into practice in an actual tournament. Of course, Matt and Tim have been working with me on it too, so they kind of get a little bit of background about asynchronous tournaments. But
I'll just pop in here and say kind of my, initial thoughts when I first heard, it's been a long time. Jared just said it. We've been working on this a long time. And I've come to understand this concept that, in all rights, Jared has developed, in what's seemingly independently for himself, but I'm sure people have done this, elsewhere. It doesn't seem to be, prevalent, it doesn't seem to be everywhere yet. So the idea is kind of hard to grasp. Like when I first heard it, I just did not understand. And I think a lot of people still kind of don't understand. So this video really, one of the simplest breakdowns, hopefully, of this video is you kind of understand the premise of what it is. So, there's a million ways to say the same thing. And Jared, I'm sure, has a million ways he's going to kind of explain it to you. But, in my mind, think of a tournament where, everyone's giving the same speeches at the same time for a debate tournament. So just start with that premise. So, Jared, what does that mean? I hopefully that kind of makes sense, and you can kind of tee off on what does that mean that everyone does the same speeches at the same time. Okay,
so I'm thinking that this episode might be a little bit more about like me talking and y'all asking me questions, because it does get a little confusing sometimes. Okay, so let's start with, what do you expect at a regular tournament? Okay, so at a normal tournament, you go and you'll have, let's say you got 20 people enrolled, okay? And it's just one-on-one debate. We're not doing the teams right now. You could do, but the same principle applies, right? And what you do for a synchronous tournament is half of them debate on the affirmative and the other half debate on the negative. And everyone goes from the first affirmative constructive to the last affirmative rebuttal, and then you're done and you come back and you do it again
for another round. And
we
lost Jared for just a second, but he's right. So conventionally, in one 45-minute period, or an hour, you're going to go into a room and you're going to conventionally, or synchronously is the word we're going to start using in this episode specifically. You go into a room and you debate at one time, at one place. When I said earlier, like, you are all doing the same speeches at the same time, that's different. And Jared, we got you back.
Now you're back.
All right, sorry. I have to make sure I'm on the right router. My bad. All right. So where did I get cut off?
Well,
just after 45 minutes of a round, you come back.
Yeah, okay. Conventionally, people go to a room and they debate in a round, and they have, two people doing an half and an egg, and then they go out and they do it again.
Yeah, so take a look. This is kind of like a color-coded version of that, right? Like each color represents a different debater. And you can see how, like, the colors are, on the left-hand side, you have of each panel, you have the affirmative, and on the right-hand side of each panel, you have the negative. The colors are just a way of differentiating them, okay?
Okay.
So that's what a normal tournament looks like.
Each one of these boxes, Jared, is 6 rounds in front of us. Is that essentially what we're looking at here?
Yeah, you're looking at 6 different rounds, right? So debater A, right over on round 1 at the very top, is against debater K, all right? But then on round 2, debater A is on the negative, and they're going against debater N, right?
Yeah. This is a conventional style.
So that's how it is. Yeah. So now, if you go to an asynchronous tournament, though, that is a little bit different, okay? Because what you can do is that you could have all 20 debaters submit an affirmative all at the same time, and they send it to the person that they are paired up against. So now you can see that debater A is at the very top is against debater Q, but they're also debater A is also 5 lines down on the negative against debater E.
I want to just chime in for 1 second, Jared. You said, people send the video to the other team or to the other party. Yeah. And like in essence, that's exactly what happens. I just want to highlight really quick, and I'm going to jump back out of here, that the administration of that process is done through DebateSensei. And it seems very simple in concept, but the pairing of all these people and the sending of the videos or sending of the affirmatives are done by a system, not just Zoom and email or something like that. So go ahead.
And they'll be accessible in a single stream, right? So the idea is that after videos are sent back and forth, you can watch the entire round. Like you can go back and watch previous. It's not like, let me go find that damn email with the file in it and wherever. Like it's all in one cohesive stream, right?
Yeah. Right. Jared, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, but as you can see, it actually kind of frees you up to do more things. So as you can see, there's like 2 rounds are actually happening at the same time. Everyone is going through the same stages. So for the first, so there will be a submission deadline for the first affirmative.
Yeah, let's talk. Right? And now we're talking about in terms of weeks. The first deadline would be the first affirmative, which would be on week 1. Yeah. Let's just call it that.
Yeah. And so and then you'll have. And then it's followed up by cross-examination. So what people do is they have ways of contacting each other. They set up a conference, just like we're doing right now, a conference call, record it, and that produces a video file, and then they submit that as their second video in the round.
That is the only synchronous type element to this entire process, by the way. Yeah. The cross-examination, which can be accomplished, by the way, in other means, but the best way we can find is cross-ex is a conventional, you and a person are in a remote room together doing a cross-ex and recording it. That is the one part of this process that requires that. Jared, I'm sorry again.
It's like this. Like we're using StreamYard right now, and it's a great free service if you only need to do a few things here and there, and it records it and sends it. And so I highly recommend using this.
For now.
But a lot of people have access to Zoom through their colleges. I don't know. Google Meet doesn't seem to be recording it. I think you might have to have certain sort of pay scale to access that feature. But anything, Skype,
most
FaceTime,
importantly, DebateSensei is going to come out with a system that does all this perfectly, by the way. So you can use all these alternatives, but we're in development right now. This exact just formula for the administration to simply plug in some roster names and hit enter. Yeah. Moving on. Sorry, Jared.
Yeah. And so, but the thing is that if you expand your thought on this a little bit, on the very first day, instead of submitting 1 affirmative, you can submit 3 affirmatives. You submit 3, and then you send them to 3 different people.
Yeah.
And now that's 3 different affirmative rounds. And there's also 3 people that are sending you affirmatives. So there's 6 rounds happening at the same time.
On week 1,
affirmative. And then, so you do 3 affirmatives, and then you do 6 cross-examinations. And then you do 3 negative constructives. And then you do 6 let's say we're doing NFALD, right? 6 cross-ex. And then you do 3 affirmative rebuttals, 3 negative rebuttals, 3 affirmative rebuttals, 6 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those.
Honestly, you wouldn't have to submit 3 affirmatives. You submit 1 affirmative.
Yeah, LD is kind of a weird way to, is an interesting choice because it would remain the same. But in an asynchronous tournament, you can make 3 different resolutions. I mean, that's kind of
it depends, though. What I'm suggesting in our invite that'll be coming out really soon is that we will put the pairings up, the postings up, and you might want to strategize a different affirmative depending on who your judge or your opponent is. I mean, there's a whole world of strategy that we have yet to discover because this is such a different way of doing things. You know what I mean? And I think that's what, like, I would love to talk about that in this meeting right now. Like, I mean, imagine the different sort of approaches. Well, like, what happens if you hit the two of the same affirmatives, and you'd be able to do like one negative, and then just send it to two different copies to them? It's like, oh, cool, you made my job easy, awesome. You know what I mean? And so,
there's different ways. We're already starting to jump into the realm of possibilities, but I think let's go back. I think where I want to go back to, Jared, is like, so week one you submit all these videos. Okay, you can either think of it we're talking about two different things. One, submitting one affirmative for one resolution for a tournament. You could technically do that. You know what I mean? And just run. So everyone submits an affirmative, everyone submits a negative, and everyone,
First affirmative is the easiest, right? Because you could just make 3 copies of one affirmative and submit them.
Exactly. Yeah. So or you could have 3 different resolutions to begin with, and so for the entire lead up of the tournament, you're preparing 3. We like that example just because it makes it so much more, interesting how much debating happens. But now you're probably asking yourself, like, well, how do you do 6 cross-examinations and, 3 afs and 3 negs? I need a lot of time for that. Okay. And that's another element of asynchronous debate that's different than a synchronous tournament that all happens in one day. So we said week 1 that you submit your first affirmative. Okay. Now go ahead.
Yeah. My biggest issue with tournaments in general has always been that time limitations are just that students can only get on a campus together for one day, right? Or maybe 2 days if you can stretch it out like that. And it's just physically difficult to get through, how many out rounds or how many rounds physically fit. And it's just because of the logistics of a tournament. By having more time, you can really hone your arguments and get everything really dialed in. Not even, to talk about how much time you have to review and craft rebuttals that traditional debate allows you maybe 2 minutes of prep time versus now you have a week of prep time. But just the ability of a debater to participate in lots of things whenever they're able to do it. If you work 2 jobs and you're only able to record your video at 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, great. You can still participate in the activity that was previously never accessible because you had to be there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on a Saturday and a Sunday typically. And that just is not reasonable. I love that this affords access to so many other people with time constraints.
Yeah. Right. And think about the people who do more than one debate event now, where that might have been impossible before. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, I can't do that. Like, they usually are conflicting.
Or extemp and LD, you can never do the 2 together, even though like plenty of people would want to. Like, there's just lots of, there's a lot more opportunity to get to do the activity.
Right. Right.
So what I was, just to finish my point from earlier, like, week 2 is the deadline for the next, cross-examination.
Oh yeah. Let me show you.
Go ahead, Jared. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me show you a schedule that I've just been working on right now. Okay. So this is like, CETA is like just the longest debate that I know of. I mean, other than BP maybe, but even then I don't think BP is longer. So CETAs are the longest thing, and those are kind of hard to see. But like, for instance, if you submitted the first affirmative on October 10th, then you would have 5 days to get all 6 cross-examinations done.
Yeah.
Get them done by the 15th. And then so between the first submission and the last submission, that's 6 weeks. And, all 8 speeches plus 4 cross-examinations in 6 weeks means that you have between 3 and 5 days for each of those stages. Now, I put more time for the cross-examination part because you have to schedule 6 of them, right?
Yep.
And I figured anybody can, they can do with less time for their actual speeches because they probably know what they're going to say anyway after the cross-examinations are done. So, yeah.
So, Jared, I mean, here's another question I wanted to bring up today. I mean, we're talking about tournaments right now, and I want to continue to talk about tournaments, but like, you use this also in your class, argumentation and debate, or, whatever you call it at your school. I mean, how does that work? I mean, do you still do live debates?
Oh yeah, yeah. I still do, like when we were able to, still did live debates. We still did streaming debates and stuff like that. I actually have my students just get their own StreamYard account, and they all of them seem to figure it out really easily, right? And they can record those synchronous ones and then just send those in as well. And so I think that's that's an interesting a way of doing it as well. While that's a synchronous debate, the judging might be asynchronous. That's, like, I think that's pretty cool. The judging is really awesome part about this as well, because now that opens up a whole world of opportunities where you could have one judge judging 3 debates in the same round. I mean, like, if you're willing to watch enough rounds, then like the judging commitments are way more flexible now.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
The judge could theoretically make more money if they have more, if they could just
you could have one judge cover 2 commitments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
conflict out or whatever, but yeah.
If there's too many teams, but if there's too many teams from one school, that's a problem no matter what.
I mean, you could cover even more than 2 commitments. You could cover as many as you would want, right? Like, so long as there wasn't a conflict, it's however many you are able to or interested in watching in a week's time.
Right.
They're just keeping up with each of those. Now, one thing I think that I'm interested in is when you're from a competitor standpoint. So if you're participating in this activity, what that experience is like receiving a video. So is it like just a MP4 video that they receive, or is it on like a YouTube channel or something? Like, how does one receive new videos, watch them, transcribe them, flow them, whatever?
Okay, so part of that is philosophical, right? And part of my philosophy is trying to maximize competitive equity. And I was really worried about the idea of people submitting YouTube links and then having their like viewing history on there and like a profile picture and like videos that they produce and that influencing. And I just wanted people to focus on just the performance at that time. And so we opted to go for accepting raw files, the video files, MP4 and MOV. Both of those files can be viewed directly in Google Drive. So we just make sure that we have enough space in our drive for people to submit it directly to the drive, and therefore, they don't have to have that resource of like memory storage or anything like that. We supply that particular resource for them, we just invest in it, and so those folders are a way of sharing that, and people can just go straight to the folder and they can watch the videos right there. And the best part is that you can see it like as soon as it's submitted.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody else that's given, and you can limit the access and share it to just the debaters, coaches, and the host of the tournament.
There's a lot of advantages to the file like being sent compared to a synchronous, stream conversation. Yeah. We talk about it a lot, but I think we can, since we're here again now, we'll say a couple of them where it's just, the main thing, one of the problems in synchronous online tournaments is the connection problem. I hope I'm not having one right now. Hopefully not. But like once someone drops out, once someone drops out, you can't, it's not honestly, fair to try to argue that they won or lost because of connection problem. Who knows what they said. So one thing that uploading the file does is it eliminates all that. Once you upload a file and send it, the person who receives it is going to watch it in its entirety 100% very clearly. That's an advantage to, just normal online debate as we know it right now. Another advantage, which is kind of, an interesting advantage that also kind of harkens to like competitive equity, and we could have this whole discussion, but you can get a much clearer video on recording a video, whatever you're using, even your phone, just recording a video onto your phone and sending a file is a much cleaner video than what you'll ever see on a stream. So, the clarity, you'll be able to hear someone better. We talk all the time about any sort of equipment or stuff you have that can enhance the ability for the people to see or hear you. You can use that stuff. And that will, the quality of video is better and there's no connection problem. So those are 2 good things. And I just wanted to mention that, Jared.
Yeah. Anybody who's watching, like, don't be afraid to ask some questions. All right. We're here, like, because this is new. This is new type stuff. And so if you're like, how does this work? How does that work?
Hopefully we did some, we need to really make sure, hopefully everyone kind of understands that, this takes weeks. So, like one thing that we're talking about, I'm working with a professor right now, with a person who's in charge of forensics over at a school, and they are trying to have they're potentially going to have a hybrid tournament. Hybrid tournament meaning they are going to maybe have all their debating live and all their IEs on asynchronous style as for in the fall. And one of the things that's coming to light in my mind is like the deadline of the tournament day, where normally everyone thinks of that deadline in a conventional, we're going to the tournament, that's when you go compete. And online, if there's a hybrid style tournament, in my opinion, you kind of set that as the, day everything is finalized, right? Like the judging is done by the date of the tournament. And that way, when the award ceremony hopefully comes, even though it may seem almost kind of like two separate tournaments at that point, you would be able to be part of that ceremony, and you would be able to, any sort of ability you could have to interact with that ceremony, or for them to see you or for you to see them, could all happen on that day at that time. And it really kind of allows for people who are doing all kinds of events to also participate outside of the school. And then if they're in certain events in Corona world, you might be able to lower the amount of students at your school, the hybrid theory of like what can be done. And that doesn't necessarily mean coronavirus land. Jared is always, we are proponents of, this, there's room for this outside of coronavirus world. So Jared, you want to talk about that maybe for a second? Go ahead.
Well, see, part of it is like it makes like the national travel an interesting thing. I think that it's really hard to get elsewhere, and there's these little enclaves of debate societies. It's like over on the East Coast, there's more APDA than NPDA. And NFALD is way more popular in the Midwest than it is out in California, and part of that is just what the entries at the tournaments are. But if you have the ability to go to more tournaments, or at that tournament, you can just go, you know what, I'm going to try out NFALD because now it doesn't conflict. I don't have to, I'm not really sacrificing anything. I think like those reasons are for doing it. Also, you don't have to cancel any of your other tournaments. It doesn't conflict with any of them because
by its nature, right?
Yeah, to plan it. And then the last thing that I'd say about that is like time zones. If you have a national tournament that's synchronous, there's going to be a 3-hour difference between some of the competitors.
More. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hell, Hawaii, I've never seen Hawaii
or
competing.
International. that could be anywhere. Like,
Right.
Sure.
Like the time zone difference would make scheduling really, like you have to think about like competitive equity in that situation as well. And it seems like this kind of makes it like solves that problem.
The international timeline, whatever that's the one. That's the one we're going to use, I think. I don't know.
No. It's just, it's
prime meridian.
I don't know. It's almost a compulsion for me to like, once I'm introduced to something interesting, to deconstruct it and see how you can build it in a really wild and different way, and then after you're done, like say, what have I done? What
can we do? Yeah. The potential is high. I think. People when they start to understand like the potential of what access this can bring to people who do not normally see each other.
Think about how it changes prep, though, right? For for policy topics, right? You know the topic beforehand, and the majority of your prep time was devoted to like covering as much neg ground as you can. You find one AF that you think is solid, and you get some back files on it, and then you just go, I'm going to try to research as many neg files as possible because I need to be able to adapt as much as possible. Now you can wait until you hear the damn video, and you can just do direct research. You know what I mean? And like, man, I'm hoping that less debates devolve into topicality, because usually that's the only thing people can predict. Yeah. Because those are the only words.
Or they'll just be the most interesting topicalities you've ever heard. That's the part where it's like they could go down rabbit holes on, who knows? Like we talk about dictionary definitions because it's just like the thing we had on us before the internet was invented, and we just continued to hold to that standard because it's so simple. But if you wanted to, it's like you could, there's all these words I don't even know what they mean, but the origins of words. There's all these. You could go down. You could have crazy topicalities on the essence of words meaning. Like
but there's no reason that any argument should not be flushed out.
Yeah,
and
that's the truth.
The common issue I think that novice rounds are won and lost, and even a lot of open rounds come down to someone did not respond to something because they didn't have time, or they didn't adequately respond to it because they didn't understand it, or they didn't, very thoroughly explain their justification. There's no reason for any of those things now because you can take all the time you want. You can watch the video that someone sent to you 100 times if you want to get every word exactly right and be able to respond back. And there's, I would say, probably not even a need to speed through a lot of things because you can plan your word economy such that there's not a need to get through a million different things.
Right.
You can elegantly answer any particular response. And it just, I think, becomes much more of a performance because the content is going to be the thing that you can spend a week dialing in. And then it's just how you go about persuasively delivering. So I'm fascinated to see how much further and deeper responses go. Because now, like, you can research mid-round in excess. You can get really deep second rebuttals, right? Like,
but speaking about accessibility, think about what this means to have deaf debaters.
Absolutely, accessibility. Like, you can now have subtitles.
There are transcription services out there that are pretty darn good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't take a whole lot of time, and as long as you're clear enough, and now you have the flexibility and the time in your schedule that you can actually produce a transcript, send it to somebody, and they could respond. You know what I mean? It's like you could put those subtitles in the video itself, so they could watch it that way. I'm fascinated. What does this mean for prison debates?
Yeah,
they've had those before. You know what I mean?
To that note, to that point, Jared, it's like, we talk about tournaments, and everyone thinks of tournaments in such in a conventional way, where it's first of all, we all think of it as multiple schools, and we all think of it as people coming together. A tournament can be that even online asynchronously, but if you're interested in having a little tournament at your classroom, your students, you can set that up. Yourself, we can help you with that type of thing. That's a mini tournament essentially, but it's like, especially right now where if there's not a lot of interaction and they're already planning synchronous debates, you can kind of overlap this, into your class or courses or camp or whatever you have to kind of just increase the number of debates they're doing and kind of changing the way, people are doing debates. They are gonna get different research skills using asynchronous debate, which is another advantage where you're forced to sit down and think about it with full knowledge of what you're supposed to say. So there are ways you can integrate this into your smaller environment if that is still a tournament based system. There's also courses we provide with substantive learning if anyone's interested in that type of stuff. But most importantly, and as we're talking about here today, we enter multiple school tournaments at any high school, middle school, or college level. We facilitate asynchronous debate as well as, right now we are currently in the process, but definitely online IE tournaments or individual events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got an invite. We're gonna hash out some of these details and throw it out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's and try to get one of the first of these going. I mean, I think you could see the influence of online chess.
Yeah.
Kind of influencing this design, right? Where there's a way to play chess where everyone can, start one move, and I could send one move to that person, one move to that person, one move to that. I could be playing 3 games at a time, and they just keep on sending those things back and forth. It's the same thing, but the big difference is that there's a finite amount of turns in debate. Right? There's a predetermined, defined amount of turns, which in a sense kind of makes it easier because now you can just schedule out. When everything will
turns. You meaning turns it's your turn to go and my turn to go, right? Yeah.
I think the coachability is maybe a final point just wrapping up here is a fantastic one because previously you teach a student as much as you can, and then out of the nest you push them and like hope that they fly at the tournament and they come back. Maybe they won something, maybe they didn't. But your ability to determine what went well and what didn't really relies on ballots, if you get those, and how well the student listened to or like evaluated themselves or listened to the judge's feedback if they got any. Now you can actively watch what they received in, what they're note taking. Like you can teach flowing on a not even a round by round, but a speech by speech basis. So like, okay, you go ahead and flow this argument, and now let's look at your flow and let's see how we would make it different, because you have all the time in the world, well, a week at least, to then transcribe that, help them, take notes, and then, all right, let's plan the speech going back. So I don't know if coaches are going to be engaged to the level of like every single speech for all their speakers, but just in a classroom-based setting, it's no longer a go run into this debate and 45 minutes later we'll tell you that you were doing something completely wrong at the beginning that you could have tweaked and made better. It's stop-start debate, but in the best possible way. And I always found that to be the most valuable in a live classroom, when you can real time give a student adjustment and recognize this is an issue, here's how you can make it better. Now you can do it in between each speech and know that they're confident and capable in what they send to their opponent and what they receive back and how they plan each step. I think the amount of coachability per round just goes up exponentially. The amount that a student can learn about debate every round goes up by a huge margin.
Oh yeah, and like not just coaches, but just their teammates too. You know what I mean?
You can record 5 times before you get the one you like. I mean, we haven't said that yet, but I just want to say that before this is over. There's no rule on saying you've recorded once, you have to submit that. No. It's like, I didn't like that one, do it again. I didn't like that one, and now you turn into Gene Simmons writing a rock song, and you'll never be happy, right? So. But that is an asset. That is an advantage in a lot of ways, where you can kind of, let's do a redo. That doesn't exist.
But if you could write efficiently, man, you could write out. You could write it out. Yeah, you know what I mean. You could get a teleprompter. You could go all out with it. And really get it done pretty good. If you wanted to.
I got a teleprompter.
Huh?
I've been reading this whole time.
I really would like to see what people do with it. I also think that like it'll be a different group of people. I mean, like hopefully there will be plenty of overlap with the same group, but I would love to just tap into a new group of people that like the idea of debating. Maybe they're just intimidated by the high pressure, aspect of it, and this is a little bit lower pressure. Like, I'm fascinated to see what type of artistry we see on the other end of this. Like the quality of the videos and their word usage and stuff like that, because you could pick your words a lot more carefully. It's just like I just want to see what people do with it.
So where should people check out? Because you mentioned a couple times you've got an invite coming out. Where's that coming out? Where should we look for it? How can I sign up?
So that invite we're going to be sending out to various listservs, whoever is willing to put it out, but it'll also be put out on forensics-tournament.net is where all the registration and stuff will happen.
Cool. Okay.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it. A little over time, but I don't know.
Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah. Hey, we have Tim Seavey here from Visolutions and San Diego State University. Also, the Matt Shapiro, Esquire.
Thank you, everybody.
Jared Miller, you're professor of communications. We're DebateSensei. All right.
My professor.
Join us next week. We'll see you then. Okay. Thanks, everyone.